in your life on this Sunday, April 13th, 2025. Hello again, everyone. I sure hope you're doing well. Welcome to the Uncrowned UFC 314 post show. It is nice to be here as the sun sets on what was called the best card on paper of the year so far, and I think delivered. As you just heard moments ago, Alexander Volkanovski is once again the UFC featherweight champion. He did it. He beat Diego Lopes in what was a very entertaining affair. He wins via unanimous decision, 48-47 according to one judge, 49-46, and 49-46. There were some dicey moments for Volk. There was a lot for him to answer tonight. There was the 35 and older curse, as he put it. There was the 2-fight losing streak. And it's very interesting. I remember saying this when he lost to Ilia Topuria. I remember saying that the loss to Ilia Topuria would be the referendum on whether or not taking the fight against Islam Makhachev in October of 2023 was ultimately the right call for his career. I said in that moment in February of 2024 that we could only fully write the story on the decision to take the short notice fight against Islam Makhachev after the Topuria fight. And as the Topuria fight came and went and he loses via knockout, I think we could confidently say taking that Islam fight was a mistake. Now I feel like a full year later, we can fully decide whether or not this man is done. We can fully close the book on that discussion and say, look, those were two tough losses. Those were two, bad performances. Those were two fights against two of the very best at 155 and 145. But this man is not done. And I think we can move that 2-fight losing streak to the side. We can move the 35 and up curse to the side. The man is still, as of right now, the best featherweight in the world, because Ilia Topuria is, as of right now, no longer a featherweight. I have some information on his situation that we'll get to later in the show, but he is once again the king. That was his 7th title victory, one away from Jose Aldo. And we talk always about GOAT, this GOAT, that GOAT, this GOAT, that. Well, finally we have a guy who is actually in the discussion for surpassing a GOAT and could very well be on his way to being the most decorated featherweight champion of all time. So I'm Ariel Helwani. We've heard you. We're working through the kinks. You said you wanted the old school 3-Pac post shows. You said you wanted the old school Ringer MMA post shows. You didn't just want me up here waxing poetic. So you said it. We listen. We bring back the crew. First, we go to Connecticut. The mayor of the Nutmeg State is standing by. The man in the hat. I do believe he is back home. Is he back? Okay, he is back home because I think he had a pit stop in the 305, but he is back with us. Chuck, how are you?
I am well, man, and I got to say, this is fun, first of all, to be back on with you, but also, isn't it cool when one of these delivers? I feel like sometimes when we get one of these cards that are very sexy on paper, they don't often deliver, but I really felt like this one did. Like, this looked like it was going to be can't miss, and it actually was a can't miss card.
Yes, it lost a highly anticipated main card fight, Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal, but every single fight on the main card delivered from top to bottom, and some great undercard fights as well. There's good news for everyone, right, Chuck? Everyone's happy that we're back. There may be one person who is not as happy because it is currently 6:25 a.m. over in Era. We go to the patron saint of the Emerald Isle, the host of the critically acclaimed podcast, The Crack. Look at that spot. I don't know if it's painted on. Is that the sun beaming through the window over there? What's happening? You look fantastic. You look tremendous. You're the best looking guy on the team. Hello, Petesy. How are you? What is The Crack?
The crack is it's very late. I'm not used to this anymore. I know we did a little trial run with UFC London. This is significantly later. This is, in fact, 6 hours later than when we did the UFC London one, but I mean, I still got it though, right? I'm still here. I'm glowing in the middle of the night. I think the card greatly helped that. I think a lot of people have been critical of the UFC pay-per-views this year, but when you look at this card and you're looking at Volk's performance, you think about Paddy Pimblett, Yair Rodriguez, all these fantastic performances, Jean Silva, you're trying to work out which one of them stole the show, and I think that's a fantastic way to look at the card and know that it was a brilliant night when you've so many guys stepping up and having brilliant performances.
Very well said. This was just what the doctor ordered. Both of you have alluded to that. For the UFC, that is, Alexander Volkanovski defeats Diego Lopes via unanimous decision. Paddy Pimblett with, without a doubt, the best performance of his entire career, and that would even date back to his Cage Warriors run as well. He defeats Michael Chandler via third round KO. I mean, it was just an absolute mauling, if you will. Yair Rodriguez with a unanimous decision win over the debutant Patricio Pitbull. Silva on Passover night one, defeats Bryce Mitchell via ninja choke. As Ant Evans was on fire. He said Jesus didn't tap, but Bryce Mitchell did. I'm just stealing his tweet.
Man.
I'm just stealing his tweet. Dominick Reyes with the massive win over Nikita Krylov, winning now 3 in a row since his time off. An incredible comeback for Dominick Reyes, who was oh so close about 5 years ago to becoming the UFC light heavyweight champion. So we'll go through all those results and some of the undercard results as well. But let's go back to the main event. Just to be 100% clear, Chuck Mindenhall, were you okay with the scorecard? You know, it was a little bit, there was the knockdown at the end of the second round. Did he steal the round? There was the cut. There was this and that. Were you okay ultimately with who won the fight?
Yes, I thought that it was either going to be 4-1 or 3-2, depending on the second round. And obviously, like, getting knocked down in that second round made you have to think about it. It happened toward the end of the round, so you're like, okay, what will the judges score this as? I still thought Volkanovski probably still won the round. The fight was one-way traffic really up until that point. So in the end, though, I thought that was the only one that might be debatable. All the rest of the rounds were easy to score in terms of the rounds that went to Volkanovski. So I think they got it right, man. And dude, what a performance. You know what I mean? What a performance for a guy who I think he talked about the doubts of everything that went into a fight like this. People were pointing out, you know, him being 36 years old. We keep talking now in 2025 about guys over 35 in the lighter weight divisions who, you know, can't reclaim or, you know, can't regain whatever you want to say, like their original form. They can't get back to that. He was not fighting a guy that probably he was supposed to be. I know that in the end he was a favorite, but like I think this was a younger guy that they thought, you know, we might be entering a new era. There was just a lot of things going against him, but to put on that kind of performance, man, with all that going against him, and to showcase it from the beginning, you know, just kind of going in there and showing up in that vintage form. He reminded me of the Volkanovski we saw in Holloway 3, where he just kind of pieced him up and overloaded his opponent with information to the point where he didn't know what to do for the first, you know, 8-9 minutes of that fight. Just a beautiful performance, man.
Pete, earlier in the week, we were talking about how good he looked, how shredded he looked, and all that is well and good, but you wanted to see how he looked in the fight. And to me, it was all about, okay, first, second round, how would he look? And I thought in the first 5 minutes he looked spectacular, and I thought in the second round he looked spectacular. I was worried how they would score it for him. You know, in you know, if you're looking at it from his vantage point, because that knockdown at the very end of the second round could have stole the round, although I didn't give it to Diego Lopes. What were you seeing from Volk that was perhaps different from the last two fights?
Well, I think the one thing that Diego struggled to deal with immediately was the intensity that he brings into a fight. As you said, over the first 5 minutes, he kind of set out his stall, and you can see that Diego really struggled with that kind of intensity. Like, this guy is coming at me from the first bell. He was tagging him liberally. And not for nothing, Ariel, like, one of the things that I was really impressed with was seeing him overcome moments that Diego had. And he did have his moments in the fight. You got to remember that we were talking about, look what happened against Ilya. Look what happened against Islam. These are two big KOs. And as we know, when you start to see lads go down, it can happen a lot more in the next fight. In the next fight after that, you kind of start going, oh no, how is his chin going to react? I think it's a massive sign that Volkanovski's future is still in the cage when he's overcoming moments, especially like that one at the end of the second. You saw him going down. They did a slow-mo at the end of that round, and he was completely with it throughout it. He didn't get overwhelmed, and many moments in that fight, Lopes is bearing down on him. He's throwing the kitchen sink at him, and Volk seemed completely equal to it. I thought that was one of the most promising things for me, to see him come through adversity and still have his hand raised.
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed. I mean, there were moments where he was in the pocket, he was trading, and I was like, golly, I don't know if you have to take these kinds of risks. He was wrestling with a guy who's tremendous on the ground as well. Like, he was he wasn't just coasting. And there was a moment there at the end where I think, with just about 30 seconds left, Diego Lopes was like, all right, I need to do something emphatic here. And he tried to do the old Max Holloway. And
Hell no.
at that point, Volk was like, nah, I'm good. I'm good, bro. I'm not going to engage in that.
His fight IQ is always on point. You know what I mean? He's not going to fall.
You know what? That's 100%. That's always been one of his greatest traits, and really not talked about enough. How could you not be happy for the guy? He has been through a lot. He's very open about his struggles. But really, on the flip side, Diego, it was in a situation where if Ilia Topuria remained champion, tonight we would have gotten Ilia Topuria versus Alex Volkanovski. So here he is, benefactor of a situation where the champ moves up and vacates the title. And I think he proved he can hang with the elite. He could go 5 rounds against one of the greatest featherweight champions of all time. We say this quite often in these moments, Chuck, but I don't think his stock went down. In fact, I think you can make a very strong case that his stock went up, that he is respected now. He's a player, and he probably is 1 or 2 away from being right back in this situation.
Yeah, and I think you hear this all the time, that guys learn more in defeat, obviously, than they do in their victories. This was his first 5-round main event where you could see him almost trying to process, okay, how should I approach this? Maybe it was just kind of drilled into him, like don't go in there and headhunt and try to take the guy's head off right away. Pace yourself a little bit, look for those openings and get there. But what it ended up being was it looked tentative. It almost looked like he was being holstered and maybe being too patient, to the point where Volk starts rolling, he gets dialed in, he gets into his rhythm, and pretty soon he's now mixing some level changes in there, and he's dictating the fight on every level. That seemed like a nightmare scenario for a guy like Diego Lopes, who we know is a big puncher, and you're expecting him at any point to show that in a fight like this. It didn't come out. So I think he can look at this from every angle, and you know, obviously you can pick and choose, but I think one of the things he's going to realize upon watching that is the first 8 minutes of the fight, 9 minutes of the fight, however long it took before he landed that big shot in the second round. He wasn't really bringing the fight like he normally does. The commentators were making a big deal of it, but it was kind of like I think everybody's consensus was you probably don't want to go into rounds 3, 4, and 5 with a guy like Volkanovski, who gets better and makes who adapts to what's happening. You don't want to be down on the scorecards to a guy like that, because he will be relentless the rest of the way. And that was the scenario he put himself in. So there's going to be a lot of stuff for him to learn from this.
Yeah, he didn't become a passenger at any point, did he, Ariel? You know, like you were never kind of going, well, this is completely away from, as you were saying, like you were watching Volkanovski in those exchanges in the final on the 4th round. And even though he was winning, say, the 5th round, I think I gave Diego the 4th. Yeah, I think that's the only round I gave him. But you could see, like, you're kind of like, you're worried for him in those situations. That's because Diego didn't give up on himself. You see a lot of guys in these situations, especially after that initial 9 minutes, where whatever it was, 8 minutes up until he got that big shot in at the end of the second. But it was kind of looking like, you know, what can this guy do with this version of Volk? Volk has him completely figured out here. He looks like he's a bit hopeless, but he didn't give up. He found his spots, and I think he'd be very encouraged by that.
I just want to read you guys the UFC featherweight title victories on Jose Aldo's resume. I'm not going to include WC. Is that unfair to not include WC?
Yeah, because he was the champion of featherweight. There was no other featherweight division. I think you should.
Okay, so then the stat that they put up at the end of the broadcast is inaccurate, because they just put UFC title victories. But if you want to include WC title victories, which is totally fine, Jose Aldo beat Mike Brown, Uriah Faber, Manny Gamburian in WC, and now these are the UFC victories in title fights. Mark Hominick, Kenny Florian, Chad Mendes, Frankie Edgar, Chan Sung Jung, Ricardo Lamas, Chad Mendes, and then he lost to Conor McGregor. So those are the names. Now these are the names on Volkanovski's resume: Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, Chan Sung Jung, Max Holloway, Yair Rodriguez, and then he lost to Ilia Topuria, and then he wins it back against Diego Lopes. If we're just looking at the UFC resume, you can make a very strong case that, and this is not revisionist history. Like, we're talking about guys, those 2 wins against Max are huge. We're talking about guys in their prime. you can start to, I think, finally make that case, if you are uncomfortable with making that case, that he is the greatest featherweight champion of all time. Regardless of that, even more impressive is the fact that he got knocked out twice, took a year off, and beat a guy who's very much in his prime, who is very talented, who has been on some kind of roll, and he looked like that against him. If I can offer one critique, it's that, and he wasn't given the softball. I wanted him to mention someone in the post-fight because there's a lot of ambiguity regarding Ilia Toporia's situation. There's some talk about Movsar being next. I wanted some sort of like movement in the division, and maybe it's not on the champion to call someone out. Maybe it's not his place, but I wanted something to advance the story, and we didn't get that. Am I nitpicking here? Perhaps. But you guys know what I mean? Like, I felt like he could at least be given okay, so what are you going to do next? Because remember, when I spoke to him right after the fight was announced, he said, I want to win, and I want to come back very quickly, and I want to defend it against Movsar. That's what he told me after the Sydney card. After going 5 rounds, maybe the plans have changed. I don't know.
This
But
was
you
a
said
big
you
featherweight
came
showcase.
bearing gifts.
You know.
Sorry, go ahead, Chuck.
No, I was just saying this was a big featherweight showcase. So like there was 3 featherweight fights on this one card, and the other guys, Gian Silva, like he gets kind of thrust into a, he's not going to get next, but he's kind of now into that mix. But you had Yair basically laying it out like, hey, I want to be fighting in Mexico in September against the winner of this fight. So given that sort of context, yes, I would have loved to have heard Alexander say something more about like what he would like to do in that situation.
Yeah, and look, it's great for Yair and everything like that, but he's on a 1-fight win streak right now, right? And he's already lost.
Well, it's got to be
KO.
Movsar, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It absolutely has to be him. And look, for what it's worth, I'd still watch Diego v. Yair in Guadalajara. I think that would be absolutely electric. Like if they wanted to do something like that.
I think that fight makes even more sense.
Yes.
If Diego Lopez would have won the title tonight, and they would have done Diego Lopez versus Yair for the belt, as opposed to Diego Lopez versus Movsar, who has a win over Diego, I think it would have made less sense. Now it actually makes a ton of sense. To your point, Yair is just on a 1-fight winning streak. Now it's like the fight to make. It's the perfect maybe co-main event for that pay-per-view, because that is a pay-per-view. It's not a fight night. That fight would be a perfect co-main event, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you not say at the start of this show that you had a little gift for us regarding Ilia Topuria or something along those lines? Did you not say you had some information to throw out there?
Said he had some info.
Yes,
he said he had some info. He's kind of skipping over it. You're kind of
I was going to save it for later, so we give everyone their flowers on this great night. But no. Look, I said earlier in the week, I said by the time these two guys fight, I wanted some sort of clarity on Ilya's situation. Well, the night was rolling along, and we were not getting clarity. I thought there would be maybe an announcement, there'd be a fight. I mean, we still don't even know who's headlining International Fight Week, right? And my understanding is it's a long shot at this point that he is fighting on International Fight Week, and the reason for that is they are going to wait and see what happens in Montreal, and that is going to dictate what Islam Makhachev does. And so the general understanding is if Belal Muhammad beats Jack Della Maddalena, Islam stays and defends the 155-pound title. If Belal Muhammad loses to Jack Della, Islam moves up and fights for the 170-pound title. Now, would he vacate the title at 155 if he does that? Remains to be seen. But then if they did that, you would have Ilya fight probably Charles for either the interim or vacant title. Again, I have a hard time believing that Ilya is fighting for the interim title after vacating an undisputed title. My sense is that they would just make it for the vacant title because they just made Ilya vacate his own title. But it sounds like basically they're going to wait for Montreal. And as a result of that, you can't wait till, May 10th, May 11th, May 12th to see how this plays out to announce your pay-per-view on June 28th. I guess maybe you can because the UFC is so hot, but it doesn't seem like International Fight Week is in the works.
That would be so disappointing. You can tell me, lads. Maybe I'm getting emotional. It's late, as you know, Chuck. So maybe I'm getting a bit emotional. But if you're telling me, right, that Jack Della Maddalena goes in, he gets a massive win over Belal, that people would be as happy to see Islam v Jack as they would be to see Islam v Ilya. I don't believe that for a second. That's what's disappointing. I'm just speaking like as a fan of the sport. I think you gotta make Ilya and Islam right now. I know we say it all the time, but you just cannot play with these things when it comes to this sport. It's too, it's too unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. When you have something like that, you got to do it. You can't lift it. You can't look a gift horse in the mouth, as they say.
And nobody's been sitting around wondering what would happen if Islam fought Jack Della Manuel. You know what I mean? Nobody's been doing that. It would be very interesting to see, like, if it's introduced into a being, but at the same time, we've already been contemplating like Ilya, and just given where he's at, and I always point to, like, you just look at everybody's kind of pound for pound rankings in the men's. You have, like, this is one of those rare moments where we have two of the top guys in your pound for pound rankings that could go at each other at the absolute height of their career. One guy who is, Habib 2.0 invincible, and the other guy who might be the hottest property going, representing a new country. Everything else is going on for him, man. I just don't think it can get bigger than that. So you're right, Petesy. That would be a bit of a buzzkill if all of a sudden you're able to get that fight, and then we're like, nah, but we're going to go this other direction.
Honestly, I would love to see Volk versus Topuria too. I would have loved to see that tonight. Year off to see if Volk is able to right the wrong, but it doesn't sound like we're going to see that. Not because Topuria doesn't want to fight Volk. It just seems like the weight cut is too much for him. We can have plenty of time in the future to talk about the state of 155 and Topuria's next move, but let's stick to 314, gents. It was just announced that the gate 11.5 million, which is tremendous, but actually, interestingly enough, according to our friend Jedi Goodman, is actually less than the last two events in Miami. Last year, UFC 299 in March of 2024, 14.1, and then 2 years ago, Alex Pereira against Izzy, 11.9, so just below that, but
that's because they gave out all the front seats to the Republican Party there, man. It's like you give all those free seats up.
That's right.
That's never happened before, right? Like I thought I was going mad. Like I've never seen that. Like
Ted Cruz up there.
They're all
dancing.
There.
Well, I don't know who they are, but I've never seen like a whole assembly of politicians introduced like that back to back. Interesting.
Oh, it's tremendous. Also, Diego Lopes and Alex Volkanovski winning the Fight of the Night award. So congratulations to them. Movsar Evloev has commented on the victory. Congratulations on an excellent performance. You're a true champion. Now let's see what your word is worth. Alex Volkanovski. So he's referring to the fact that Volkanovski did say that if he won, he was going to turn around rather quickly and defend the title against Movsar. He specifically said Movsar. So let's see. Let's see how quickly he turns around. There is some talk about a potential event later this summer in Australia. Maybe that would make a lot of sense for Volkanovski. Let's see how it all shakes out. Let's move along, though, guys. I want to talk about the co-main event. PT, I got to go to you. You've been watching Paddy Pimblett for a long time. First of all, he looked gigantic in there. He looked ripped. He looked buff. He looked strong. And once again, he looked like a superstar. He had that it factor. And, I take a little umbrage, and I'm sure you will as well, with people being like, oh, he's proven himself. I think a lot of people have always thought that he was a really good fighter. Did we know what the ceiling was? No, but there's a lot of people who've been watching him for a long time who didn't think that he was just some kind of, character, some kind of creation. Like we've always known that he's been really good. Has he had some near falls? Has he lost? Yes, but this felt like the perfect fight to allow him to take that next step, and he has taking that next step with an incredible win, a vicious win over Michael Chandler. And honestly, Pete, we talk about them looking for a superstar. He's right there in front of them. I think he's one win away from fighting for the belt as a result of tonight. What do you think?
Absolutely. And, it's crazy to me. Like, you're talking about the people who have doubted him. There was plenty. And look, his body was at a stage where when he lost to Soren Beck all those years ago in Cage Warriors, where he was genuinely contemplating whether he could continue in the sport. Like, I think his hand was in such a bad way that they just didn't know if it could ever recover to the point where he would be striking comfortably with in a fight, any kind of fight. And now to see him go in against Chandler and have this really good striking display, right? Because obviously, for the most part of his career, it's always been about his stellar ground game, and his ground game is absolutely unbelievable. But to see him so composed, to see like him using this leg kick that really seemed to mess up Chandler, not afraid to exchange with him, showed no kind of gun shyness whatsoever, and we know what the kind of power Chandler has. I thought he completely dominated him. There was some early moments when Chandler was getting top position on the ground. He was kind of looking like he won those exchanges, but towards the end, when Paddy was taking his back, he was all over him. It was absolutely brilliant. I think he is setting himself into an absolutely brilliant position as well. You know why he's obviously calling out Arman? He is everything compared to Arman, right? A guy who was right on the verge of a title and just pulled from it. He is the complete opposite. This is a guy where the UFC are looking at him every time he comes out there. He looks like a superstar, as you said. He's going to have massive opportunities put in front of him soon. And not for nothing, I really like him calling out Charles Oliveira, because he knows that they're going to have to be an odd man out in these title stakes, regardless of what happens at 315 and what Islam's going to do. One of those lads is not going to fight for a title. And if I'm Paddy Pimblett, I want to be the guy who fights the odd one out. And I think he's done a great job of putting his foot in that door tonight.
What do you think, Chuck?
It reminded me, and I hate these comparisons at this point, but when Conor McGregor was doing it, there was always this doubt, I guess, of what would happen if you face this certain guy. What happens when he goes against a guy who's done this or this? And Conor kept clearing those hurdles. And even when he, I think you posted this, he's at the Miami Heat, he's on their court and he shoots a shot and makes it, and it's the same kind of what is going on, man? And I don't know, maybe he shot a bunch of shots and they just captured the one that he hit. But there's something about when you see little clips like that you're like, there's something more to him. And I always feel like this comes from a self-belief that they belong in these situations. And so they keep meeting the moment. And I thought that this would tell us that. Is he ready to do this? Because Michael Chandler's been swimming with the sharks the whole time in the UFC. And honestly, it looked like, if you had no context, if you were just watching this fight, without knowing either guy, you would think that Paddy Pimblett was the guy with all the experience in this fight, that he was the bully, that he was the guy that Chandler was overmatched against, and that's how it looked. I mean, just when he does that thing where he gets a guy hurt and he's basically sprinting towards them, trying to kick them and put them away, there's something very electrifying about those moments. So when you mentioned the it factor, it's all these weird things that kind of come together for him. And it'd be very interesting, man, to see if the UFC can catch lightning in a bottle. If he wants one of those top guys like Arman, who are you going to give Arman? That would be the biggest fight of Arman's career, wouldn't it? I mean, he was about to have that fight, the title fight, before it fell through. But this one would have so many eyes on it, so much scrutiny on it, that it might even feel bigger, to be honest. So it's he's in a great spot. He's answered the bell, but the way he got through Michael Chandler tonight, I mean, this was the tell for me, man. I was like, you beat King Green, you beat a guy like that. Okay, a lot of guys have done that, but to go through Chandler like that, man, at a moment, I think, when people were, his doubt, whoever the doubters were, if you didn't believe in him, you do now, right? So I felt like he really shined when he had to, and big things, man. He looks like he's on top of it now.
He was number 12 going into this fight. Chandler number 7. He's probably going to be in the top 5, 6. Poirier's 5. Hooker's 6. It sounds like they're moving towards Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway. Max Holloway's 4. Listen, if they do Charles Oliveira against Ilia Topuria, I'm just saying, there's a lot of ifs here. I know. If Islam moves up to 170, all I'm trying to say is, take that Justin Gaethje fight. This version of Paddy Pimblett beats Justin Gaethje.
I know.
Does anyone disagree? Take that Gaethje fight and stamp your ticket to a title shot. The Arman fight is a lot tougher. I'm not saying he can't win that fight, but Arman right now is way tougher, in my opinion, than Justin Gaethje. And they showed Gaethje. Look, the call out was perfect. He listed everyone, and then he picked the one he wanted most, and he picked the one that's the biggest star, who's still very much a player, who's very good on the ground, who's well-rounded. It was the perfect. He didn't shy away from Arman. He literally mentioned everyone except Ilia, which, by the way, is the one that's been in the works for years now. But everything from the week, the walkout, to the way in which he fought, to the post-fight interview. I just saw on ESPN MMA there was a bit of a back and forth, if you will, between him and Colby Covington in the back. Did you guys lose me? Am I still here?
No, you're
No,
there.
you're still there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had you the whole time.
There was a back and forth.
What time in that
Now
is.
we don't.
I mean, just
Now
as
we
we
do not
say,
have him.
everything is all good. He goes, my God.
Yeah.
But very impressed with Paddy Pimblett, I must say as well. And really, like, look, I understand.
There he is.
Sorry,
there he is.
you're back
I don't know
again.
what just
Go on.
happened. Anyway, I just saw a video. I just saw a video of him and Colby getting into it, and it felt very much like Colby just trying to attach himself to the man of the moment. Like, why in the world would Paddy even entertain this? Paddy was doing the post-fight interviews in the back, and Colby and him are going back and forth. Like,
Oh my God.
first of all, 70, but one guy is moving along in his career, and the other guy is,
Careening out of control.
you said it.
You
You
know,
said it.
he's something.
But so what would you guys do? Who would you book him against?
Ilya.
Yeah, man, you would do title fight right now. They would do. Listen,
know.
they gave it
See,
to,
my
they gave it
thing
to
that
Sean
I'm saying-
O'Malley.
Okay,
Right?
I'm
They gave it
saying
to
that.
Sean.
I'm saying that. Like, so let's presume the other thing, right? Like that. That Islam stays, and he goes against Charles. In that case, I would entertain that fight. I mean, why not? If you're Ilya, you're probably thinking, well, this would be my light work, right? Like, still, because you're Ilya supporter, like, why wouldn't you entertain doing that fight? You can take a guy's juice and still be right there. But man, it's just when you build bad blood and you put the guys in position to actually do it, I'd like to see it. But that feels like a long shot. But you're asking which one I'd like to see, so I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, but if you like that one, the problem is if you like that one, you're sacrificing the idea of Islam v. Ilya, which we all agree is the best fight you can make in the division.
These are all such what ifs, though. It's like it's like if this happens.
That's what these shows are for.
I know.
Chuck, this is what we do on these shows. We just go, imagine this guy fights this guy. It's the beauty of them. But I think he's in a great situation to just sit and wait and see how it plays out. Honestly, Ariel, like as I said before, whoever's the odd man out here, if it's Charles, he'll get Charles. I just can't see them making Islam v. Charles and leaving Ilya as the odd one out. Again, if Ilya's fighting Islam, if he wins, that could potentially be his first title defense, and people would lose their shit. But it would be a massive, massive fight, I think. So I think he's in a completely privileged situation here where everyone's going to want to fight him. Like the comparisons with McGregor, that's the biggest one. People are going to know that outside of a title fight, the most amount of eyeballs I can get right now is fighting Paddy Pimblett, and
they're still going to see him the most beatable, right? Like most of these guys whose styles is to like just dictate the action, and like they're still going to see him as the most beatable of the high contender, of that lot. They would see him as the guy.
Is the of all the permutations out there, of all the people, of all the matchups, is the absolute biggest fight that the UFC can make right now Conor versus Paddy Pimblett?
Wow.
Is it bigger than Tom v. John, do you think, still?
God.
I think so.
It probably, like,
just because of
Conor's
the just because of the celebrity.
I'm surprised
but
Conor
it is
no
crazy.
tweets tonight, because he put out the thing where he's going to bet on Chandler, and I'd called it a few weeks back that if Paddy wins, I think he'd shift his focus to him, and I think the lads do get on with each other. I know Paddy was in the Black Forge there a couple of years ago, but I think like if you're Paddy, do you take that fight over all of this because it's just such a
it's not a thing right now, so it's no point of even going down that road. I was just
you brought it up.
Listen, I brought it up, but no, because I'm reminded. Remember when he stood outside the O2 with the Paddy Power thing, and and he was in the cage. He was in Cage Warriors, right? And it was something about like the odds.
Yes, 20-1. He'll beat Conor McGregor before 2020.
A certain time.
It was.
Yeah, something crazy like that. And so here we are 5 years later, and he's there. I mean, he's one win away, in my opinion. He's one fight away, and a few things could break where he's fighting for the title next. That's how big he is, and that's how good he looked tonight. Obviously, there are people ahead of him, but there's things that need to happen. It's not crazy to say that. Yes.
Can I ask you something before we move on from that? Like, and it's a little bit, but have you? I was talking to, I think it was Ben. We were talking about this, or it might have been you, Pizzi, before. But have we ever seen a situation where it's like, okay, we're gonna let one champion wait to see what happens in a fight that's coming up in a month or two, or whatever it is, before any movement is made through all these divisions. I cannot recall a situation like this, like the thing that Islam has going on right now. Can you recall something like this?
Not really. When Conor won the 145 title,
Yeah.
they just, they no, it wasn't like this. It wasn't laid out like this because he was supposed to fight RDA and he held on to the belt, and then he fought Nate and he still held on to the belt. No, and it's kind of a double whammy because it's not just, hey, we're going to wait and see. It's kind of like a triple whammy, really. We're going to wait and see what's going on with this fight on May 10th. That affects a gigantic star who's moving up from 145. And, oh, by the way, it kind of puts our international fight week plans on hold. Now, I don't think that this is a potential solution for the international fight week. It sounds like maybe DDP versus Khamzat is in the mix as well. Even Dana was asked about it today, and he smiled. And so that's not a bad plan B. But it felt to me like when we found out that Ilya was moving up, it felt like the perfect international fight week fight. And so, long way to answer your question. No, I can't recall. Does that mean it's never happened before? But nothing to the top. Nothing comes to mind at this hour.
In the strangest way, it's like the power that Jack Della Maddalena then holds in his hands from nowhere is bizarre, isn't it? Like, you dictate everything that happens over three weight classes. It's just nuts, man.
It's also super weird because the Ilya fight is infinitely bigger. Now I know he wants. He wants to make his own kind of history. He's had to fight a featherweight champion a couple times technically, but it's just gigantic. It's just gigantic. So anyway, let's see what happens with Paddy. Tough spot for Michael Chandler. I don't think this is the end of him. He left the cage afterwards. He was all cut up. They said his face was messed up. We didn't really get a chance to see him. He has always been game. It was. I think it was a tough matchup for him. I mean, the size difference was very noticeable. The reach was very noticeable. Paddy had a great game plan attacking the legs as well, and then was vicious on the ground. And so we had Michael Chandler in the co-main event, guys, and then we had Patricio Pitbull, his running mate for many years in Bellator, in the third to last fight. And there was a bit of a conversation throughout the broadcast where it's like, oh, there's levels. I don't think Patricio Pitbull losing to Yair Rodriguez, who looked fantastic in his own right, exposed that Pitbull wasn't ready for the UFC or that he wasn't UFC caliber, all this stuff. We kind of forget Patricio Pitbull is a UFC rookie, but he's also 37. Mm-hmm. He's coming to the UFC quite late, and he's also, coming off a year where he did not fight. And he's fighting a guy who is bigger than him and longer than him and who's really good, who's a former interim champion. I don't think that exposed anything about Patricio Pitbull. I don't think that told us that he wasn't UFC ready, but he's a little different than some of these other guys who have come over from other organizations. He has a lot of miles on those tires. That was his, my math is correct, 44th pro fight. But as you wrote so brilliantly in your piece, Chuck, he probably has 1,000 or so fights that are unaccounted for. So there's a lot of miles there, right?
Not to mention, I mean, he's just like such a picture of perseverance. In a weird way, almost, if he didn't have like a little adversity to start something in his career, it's almost like, he wouldn't be who he is. Because I tried to point this out in the piece too, like he had so many, in Bellator when it first started, not many people were paying attention to him, but he would get to the championship part of that and he would lose. Then he'd go back, do it again. And he finally won it and he's lost it and he's had all these different setbacks, but he comes to the UFC and, it's his first fight. I know he's 37, but it is his first fight. It's going to be tough for him, to turn it around. But I thought I don't know how you guys thought, how saw it, but I thought he looked pretty good. There was moments where I'm like, okay, I think we're going to get the version that's his best version. It's just going against a really, really good guy in his first fight. If he got a lesser guy, I think that version of Pitbull probably wins it. You know what I mean? Like he probably is successful on it. So I'm not ready to throw it in on him yet. If he came to the UFC at 37 and he was contemplating retiring, if he didn't come to the UFC, it means that he still has one goal left. And that dude has proven, if nothing else, man, he's proven over the course of time that when he goes for something, he usually gets it. I don't know if he'll get this, but I think he's still going to have his moments in the UFC coming up here.
I think that idea, and I don't. It's unfortunate that I'm saying this, but because of his age in this division, I think if he had a real genuine hope of winning that title, he had to come in and win that fight tonight. And credit to Yair Rodriguez, because I think a lot of people were disappointed with his showing against Brian Ortega specifically. We had the Ilya fight on the other side of that was looming, and everybody was really excited, like what that could do for the Spanish-speaking market. Ilya v. Yair, and he looked so good in the first round of that fight, and then just completely disappeared, and Ortega got the win. For Pitbull, I think that's about the worst matchup you could have put him in. Like, as soon as we were kind of looking at these two guys and the way they fight, if Yair is on song, he's incredibly hard to get near. And when you're Patricio, you're not one of the bigger guys in the division. You are relying on getting in the pocket and getting to Yair's chin, which is a hard thing to do. I know Volk did it, and he did it well, but it's still a very difficult thing to do. So I think it was a very tough fight to look good in. I think he was there throughout the whole thing, but he still lost 30-27, I think, on most people's cards. And I think if he wanted to win a UFC title, he had to get off to a win and start against Rodriguez.
First fight in over a year for Yair. He was coming off a submission loss to Brian Ortega in February of 2024. Prior to that, coming off the title loss to Volkanovski in the summer of 2023. So he really needed a win to reassert himself, get back on track. They've got that show in September in Guadalajara. They've got the Noche UFC card. He asked for a title shot, and shoot your shot for sure. But again, as we spoke about earlier, Mofsar is right there. It makes all the sense. They're probably going back to Australia, and not for nothing. Unfortunately for Yair, he and Diego Lopes did such a tremendous job of selling a future fight at the press conference on Thursday. How do you shy away from that? And sometimes people like to bring up you can't match the guy coming off a loss with the guy coming off a win. You come off a title loss to Alex Volkanovski. It's a little bit different than your typical loss. So it makes all the sense in the world. Co-main event, put it in there, and Pitbull's going to get another crack for sure. But to your point, PT probably has to take a bit of a step back, and maybe the story is going to be that he came to the UFC just a little too late in his career, and that's unfortunate. He wanted to be in the UFC. He said that very clearly. Probably, lost a few dollars in negotiation. As when you tell the world that you want to go somewhere, you're kind of losing some leverage there. But this is what he wanted. I'm sure he has no regrets. But I do wonder if at some point he's going to think, maybe it was a little too late, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the next fight, and that was John Silva against Bryce Mitchell, and those two did a great job in their own right of selling this fight. There was a lot there. John Silva, has turned into one of the most entertaining characters in the UFC. He's got a great look. He's got a great gimmick. He's got great glasses. He barks a big game. He talks the talk and he walks the walk. And we had just seen him back in February in Seattle pick up a big win. And this was in the midst of the whole Bryce Mitchell Arc Insanity podcast. I'm not even sure. Did they make it to episode 2? I'm not sure. I have to check on that.
I forgot to subscribe that time.
Like, subscribe, comment. But he called out Bryce Mitchell, and they actually obliged, and they made the fight. And back and forth, the first press conference was great. John is barking at him. He's saying all these things. Bryce is reciting Bible verses. I mean, it was straight out of WWE. It was incredible stuff. And then this week, it was more of the same. And then John went in there and thoroughly beat up Bryce Mitchell. He won via second round ninja choke. Almost had him in a guillotine in the first round. Was incredible on his feet as well. This was a coming out party for John Silva. I was thoroughly impressed, because there was a part of me that, you look at the resume, you look at who he fought. Bryce Mitchell is a really, really good fighter. He's only been submitted once before in his career, and that was against Ilia Topuria. 15-1 going into this fight. 17-2 going into this fight. This is a really good fighter who has been in the UFC for quite some time. And so I wondered if maybe they were pushing John too fast. He had just fought, biting off a little more than he can chew. But Chuck, blown away blown away by the performance. And I think you got to spend some time with him, right, earlier this week?
Well, I'd like to say that I didn't see this coming, but with these glasses they gave me, I was able to see this coming. I knew what was going to happen, man. Gian Silva gave me these. Aren't these cool?
Those are legit.
Ones. They're legit, man. He gave me these things while I was out in Florida earlier this week. So
that's amazing.
I'm jealous.
I've got 2 pair. I'll pass one on to you. But the truth of the matter is, I had the same concerns that you did. You see him. It's almost like sometimes guys get punished when you see them buying into their own hype a little bit, and that was my fear. Not just because this is when the fighting nerds are finally getting like a lot of attention, right? They were going to have 2 guys on this card. One of them got moved off, but there was still a lot of concentration on that camp and what they've been able to do. And you could even see him on his walkout. He's coming in there, hamming it up, and he's doing all this stuff. And even in the fight, as it's starting, you see him kind of like doing weird things. And you're like, man, if you get beat in this fight, it's going to be all for nothing. But once he started to kind of throw, because it took him a little while, it seemed like he was measuring things out. But once he started to kind of throw and show just how good he is, like in general, and once it was kind of in the scrambles and everything like that, I didn't have any doubt. There was just some point where you knew that he was better than Bryce Mitchell. I mean, whatever question I had about it kind of went away. And for the way that he ended up winning that fight was really, really impressive, man. You know what I mean? So I feel like that whole camp is on fire, but that guy particularly in a very good division. We're sitting here talking about all the featherweights that are coming up, and you've got this guy putting on this kind of performance tonight, which is a great problem for the UFC to have right now.
Yeah, he's such a fun guy to have into that, near enough. Like, I know obviously Bryce is 13, but like Paddy, as we discussed earlier, this guy is really giving the UFC bang for their buck, right? Like, he's coming out here, he's doing like a dog with a bone, you might say. He's barking. He has people in a refrain of barks with him. He's going down very well. And I can imagine that if he got one big win, he could find himself in and around that title conversation. We're talking about, we're only a week off talking about, who we going to match Lerone Murphy with. I wonder if it could be someone like that. Obviously, Pitbull's there now as well, another name to be matched up with these guys who are trying to break into the fray. So it's just making featherweight a lot more fun having guys like this in it. I did think that Mitchell would be able to test him somehow in the grappling exchanges, and I think that's what I'm most impressed by in terms of Silva. Like, to submit Mitchell, who's a fantastic grappler, a guy when he gets top control just completely suffocates guys usually. I think that's so impressive, and it's a big feather in his cap as far as I'm concerned.
A somewhat meteoric rise for Gian Silva. He only entered the UFC in January of 2024, and he's been an incredible story, and he's so entertaining. He does really remind me of a smaller version of prime Vanderlei Silva. Like, he actually looks like him, and the head tattoos, and then the guy is just, I don't know what that move is that he does where he hangs onto the cage afterwards. That sort of what is that? Is that Spider-Man? What is he doing? It's crazy. The guy is just
Silva,
look at that guy. Look at that guy. He is freaking, dude. He's electric. He's something else.
And he's like this. You've talked to him, right, Ariel? Like, he's like he's like this. He comes in. I have a piece that I'm going to be writing. I won't give it away too much, but his energy level is just like this, man. He comes into a room that I was sitting in. Everybody's kind of middle of the day, not kind of low energy after lunch, and he comes in and he just immediate energy and kind of yelling and talking and just revving things up. And I'm like, you're the guy who's supposedly trying to make weight in this situation and dieting and can't eat everything, and yet you're the guy who's the life of the party. So that's what you're seeing in there is really who he is, man. That's exactly 100% who that guy is.
And apparently he wants Dana White to pay for a musician to be at his wedding. And he wants Dana White to be his best man. And Dana was asked about this, and he said he needs to find out more info, but he's open to it.
Wow.
It's a whole weird vibe with Gian Silva, but I dig it. And I'm really curious. Yeah. I'm really, really curious to see who they match him up with next, because, this guy, again, you mentioned earlier, Chuck, there's some interesting fights at 145 on this card. he went into this card. Damn, he's not even ranked. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to change very soon. And where's Bryce? Oh, Bryce is 13. You know, Yusuf Salal, Giga Chikadze, Josh Emmett. No, just come on. Lerone Murphy. Probably Lerone wants a bigger name than that. Arnold Allen. Too big of a jump. Ortega? No, Ortega's moving up. Who knows? But he's very
All
fun.
those would be fun, though.
He's very fun. Were you guys surprised, by the way? Were you guys surprised? I was a little surprised at the pop for Bryce Mitchell. Or am I
Yeah.
naive
Oh,
at
well,
this
no,
point?
no, definitely.
He was like a total baby face out there. Were you surprised?
I was feeling
John
like
was getting
throughout the
booed
week
more
he
than
was
him.
gathering momentum all week. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
this is interesting. Because the fight was made, it was going to be like some type of public hazing for this guy, right?
Yes,
like
it didn't turn
what
out that
everybody
way.
was seeing it as.
No.
I think it flipped. I think it flipped around. You know, his putting down dogs comments. I think it really reverberated with the people out there.
Most people are like that. They just want to put
Maybe
down
it just
dogs.
comes down to America versus the world. You cheer for the American. I don't
did
know.
hear the
I was
USA
a little bit
chant that.
surprised.
I heard the USA chant in that fight, and I was like, man, of all fights to like break out that chant, that seemed a little weird.
That was
It was
me.
weird.
I called you at the time, Chuck. That was me shouting on the phone at you, you know,
Oh, okay.
cheering on your boys. Yeah.
Great win for him, and yeah, we'll see where Bryce goes from here. But clearly, according to the crowd of Miami, still very much a fan favorite. So, God bless. God bless.
What a
America.
sport.
By the way,
but-
when
The whole thing is.
by the way, when Trump was making,
I'm trying so hard to bite my tongue throughout all
I
this.
know you are.
It's
he's making his way out in the crowd, you know, he's shaking hands and high fiving, and he's making his way down, and he hits Dave Portnoy, you know, the dude from Barstool, and you can see them have a small chat. I had to give my props to what's the kid's name? Who God, I'm blanking on his name. You know, the kid who writes MMA for Robbie Fox, like was sitting there and totally
Oh,
no
son.
soul, didn't stand up, didn't shake hands, didn't do anything. He just sat there as Trump was standing right there. I thought that was pretty ballsy. I could dig that.
Robbie
you think
was
he did it
also
on
doing-
purpose?
Yeah. Yeah, he was
Okay.
just sitting there like, I mean, Trump was right there. He stopped actually and talked for
Yeah.
just a second with Portnoy, and you could just see Robbie Fox, who was with him, just remaining seated. Everybody else is standing, you know what I mean, around him, and he just remains seating and not even looking up at him, just looking at his phone. So, principles, you know.
PT,
Yeah.
you were going to say something.
I was just going to ask, any significance to the yellow tie? I usually see him wearing a red one, and I was wondering if
Oh
there was
wow.
any significance.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm not sure about that. Maybe Jordan could look that up for us. Let us know.
Thanks, Jordan.
I don't know. Is it April?
I
Spring?
mean,
Do you wear
sorry
yellow
for
tie
being
in
curious
spring?
about your culture, okay, guys? I'm just being, you know,
Fuck.
just
I have
asking
no
some
idea.
questions.
No, you know
I'm
what?
efforting right now, guys.
Thank
Okay,
you,
he's
thank
working
you,
on
Jordan.
it. He's right to
All right,
ask
there
that
we go.
question, Chuck, because if you ever spend time in Ireland with Petesy and ask him any question, you ask him why that door is
Yeah.
yellow, he'll tell you why the door is yellow. So
No,
he's
he has a
expecting
lot
the same type of
useless
treatment.
information.
Yes, when it comes to
Trivia.
our culture. Guys, Dominick Reyes is all the way back. In fact, Chuck, both you and I tweeted the exact same thing. We both
I
tweeted
saw
he's
that.
all the way back.
I swear
Yeah.
I didn't see your tweet. I just can't.
No, I think you beat me
out.
to
All
it.
right.
I think I saw it after, and I was like, "Oh wow, I hope he doesn't accuse me of plagiarism here." That was a big win for him over Nikita Krylov. First round, a counter left. At one point, the finishing sequence, Nikita just like comes rushing in, like just his whole chin exposed. There's Dominick Reyes. He just kind of like, you know, he just kind of faints back, and boom, it was, what was it? It was shades of Aldo McGregor, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
it was
absolutely
just
was.
Yeah, it was. That's a good call.
no,
It wasn't
seriously,
like that.
it was kind
No,
of
it was, yeah.
the way he fell was almost the exact same.
Yeah,
And
kind
it
of
was
coming
a
in,
left, yeah.
getting caught. Boom. He
Full
went
left,
down.
Yeah, good for him. He had a nightmare stretch there, and took some time off. Came back last year, won 2 fights. Could have easily won comeback fighter of the year, and then his first fight of 2025, he wins another big one. And he said, and you know what? I appreciate it. He said, "Give me one more, and then I'm going to ask for the belt." He didn't call for the belt right away, which probably would have been a little bit too soon. There's some other things that need to happen. What a great story. Good for Dominick Reyes.
Very
I
good
think a lot
story,
of people are
and-
happy to see that.
Very unlikely, isn't it? I mean, I was trying to think of guys who they get knocked out so brutally in consecutive fights that you're just like, man, this guy is done. He can't. And you hate to do that, but you're like, you've seen it too much in the fight game. You're staying it long enough, you see this happen where they just can't take a punch anymore. And I really believed he was at that point. Now, I'm not saying he's gotten clobbered in any of the last 3 fights, but just like Andrei Arlovsky did back, I don't know, 12, 14 years ago, whenever he lost 4 in a row and a couple of those were big knockouts, he kind of altered the way he approached it. He might have made himself a little more boring, I think, but at the same time, he started winning fights again. Clearly, Dominick is in that vein in terms of like, I don't know how you guys felt, but I thought he was gone, and for him to be in this spot in 2025 is remarkable, man. You don't see this too often, especially with these bigger guys who, where it translates so much bigger to how devastating it is to get knocked out. But for him to be in a situation where he could be talking about a title shot at any point in the near future is crazy to me.
Yeah, he did great. I thought it was a brilliant performance, and Krylov really, really underrated guy. I think so dangerous, and kind of like Volk, he just emerged in this fight like looking like he had never looked before. You're like, Jesus Christ, Krylov has suddenly started doing strength and conditioning. This is going to be quite a problem. Absolutely beautiful KO, and he's looked a different guy. I'm with you, Chuck. I thought he was gone. I thought it was actually a really, really tragic situation where this fight that a lot of people thought he won against John Jones sent him into this spiral, but he's emerged from it now. And look, like, we need life in the contender shift up there. I know obviously Ankalaev, a new champion, and that does a lot for it, but there is a lot of guys hanging around the title stakes there, and I think he can jump in and just be a very interesting story. As we said, it's completely unprecedented that a guy can come back in this way, and you'd think he was probably maybe one fight away from being in those conversations as a title contender.
Yeah, he lost to John Jones in February of 2020 and then lost 3 in a row after that. Jan Blachowicz, Yair Prochazka, Ryan Spann, and was getting knocked out bad. I mean, some of those knockouts were
the Blachowicz,
were scary.
That rematch would be nice. I think that's a good fight.
No, there's a lot of good fights. And then did not fight for quite some time, for about 2 years or so. And then Dustin Jacoby, Anthony Smith, Nikita Krylov working his way back in there. Good for Dominick Reyes.
Maybe that's we'll talk the theme, about right? Taking this year, like we're talking about Volkanovski at the top. I mean, taking a year off after the knockout. You talk about Dominick Reyes. Maybe there's a little bit of a testament here to like, guys, give yourself a little break here, and restore yourself before you come back.
Yair?
Yeah.
Him as well. Took the break and came back looking great. We'll run through some of the prelim notables. I thought the stoppage in the Dan Ige Sean Woodson fight was awful. Does anyone disagree? This happened in the 3rd round.
It was
the referee Aaron
Glenn, it's like, how? What? It just made no sense.
What's going on? A bunch of shots, no doubt, but I don't think he was out. It didn't seem like his body went limp. It didn't seem like, I don't know. That was a weird one.
It's just very quick. Yeah. It just felt very quick.
Now, here's the thing. It happened at 112 of the 3rd round, and then when the scorecards came out, Dan was up 2 rounds to none, but still, one should have nothing to do with the other.
True.
It was not a great stoppage, in my opinion, but
no.
Shout out to Dan Ige. Virna Jandiroba picks up the unanimous decision win over Yan Xiaonan. Chase Hooper had to work for his win over Jim Miller. Jim Miller put him through it with that old man strength, but he got it done. He picked up the unanimous decision win over Jim Miller, and I believe that's now 5 in a row for Chase Hooper. So good on him, climbing up the ranks as well. Julian Erosa with the beautiful win over Darren Elkins. That was a vicious one as well, a first-round stoppage over Elkins.
That one was late. Like they kind of waited on that one. Yeah,
that was the thing. That one was super late, and then the freaking Dan Ige one was super early. Now, can you guys clear something up for me? Because I kind of missed this. Is Michal Oleksiejczuk, Chuck, you would know better than anyone, is he part of the Fighting Nerds?
Well, I did not hear about this, and I actually talked to Barahel while I was out there. So I didn't even. As far as I knew, he was only out there for for Xi'an. So I knew nothing about this, to be honest, man. So that was kind of surprising. Yeah,
they're recruiting from Poland. Apparently,
he's really good as well.
Yeah, he looked great over Cedric Dumas. Beautiful first round victory for him. Sumudaerji picked up a bit of a controversial split decision win over Mitch Raposo. Marco Tulio with a beautiful win over Tresean Gore. What a freaking... Was that a right? Was that a straight right or was it a left? Now I don't remember, but it was a vicious punch. I remember being
very impressed.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember. It was a long time ago.
It was like
he was kind of moving backwards, and I think it was a right. Now that I
do as well. Yeah.
Anyway, he looked tremendous. Great win for him. And Nora Cornol beat Haley Cowan via second round submission.
You confident in that pronunciation there? Yeah?
No.
Do it again. Say.
Well, no. Elle est français. She's French.
He just puts a little accent on and just hopes no one asks questions.
Cornol. Any takeaways, PT? Go ahead. Any takeaways? Go ahead. This is, by the way, for anyone new to the experience, this is what you get from PT
this is
at 7:22 a.m.
Yeah.
Any takeaways, PT? Okay, Chuck, you think on that for a moment. You chew on it.
Oh,
Chuck,
my Lord.
Any takeaways from the prelims?
I thought that Chase Hooper actually looked pretty. That was pretty impressive. I thought because early in that fight, it almost looked like Jim Miller was going to do. He was plus 1,800 to get a submission, and it almost seemed like he was hell bent on trying to get one, didn't it? Like it seemed like he was like, "Let me get this guy who's known for his grappling, his younger version, 16 years difference. I'm going to try to put him away." But he weathered that storm and really took that fight. By the end of the second round and into the third, Jim Miller looked like he'd fought like 5 rounds already, man. So good on Chase Hooper. I thought that was a really good showing for him.
Also, there was a great video of... Why are you still laughing, PT? There's a great video of Chase like walking out of the cage and he's just like exhausted. He's just absolutely exhausted. 15 minutes.
Can imagine how that feels, all right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, there it is. By the way, I do want to give a shout out to this man who... AM, quite fitting, his name, saying let PT sleep. But also, Jake, we are back, boys. Focus champ, shout out, Bay Township, Ohio. Okay, I guess that's where he's from.
100 squids?
That we always like to do. What's that? Yeah, 100, apparently. And that looks like
Jake,
USD.
Look at this catch.
Send that straight to PT. Chuck, any final thoughts? You better give us what we want. You better give us what we want.
I just want to say that this is, I'm so happy that we're doing this again. I don't care about PT's time thing, but for selfishly, I love to just kind of get together and do these things. I'm kidding, of course, PT, but hey, this is right when the NBA playoffs are about to start, Ariel. How are you feeling about your Knicks going into these playoffs?
No. Both you and I, we can commiserate together for opposite reasons. It's not looking good for the both of us, Chuck. I'll have to say. Can I just
see? I'm one of those. I have to do the optimism thing though at this.
Okay, I have to do it too, but they're just so fucking soft. They're so soft. Can we get a little fight? Can we get a little grit? Can we get a little oomph? Can we get a little John Silva? Can we get a little
You weren't happy with the Cavs' performance, Ariel, were you?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you saw that? I mean, you're up 23. There's nothing for them to play for at home, and you just let them walk all over you. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, at least we didn't fire our coach, but maybe we should
fire your coach or the GM.
Maybe we should.
I love my favorite thing, by the way. I know this is boring the audience, but my favorite thing is that everybody now, all the media, once this happened, they're like, yeah, it's fairly known fact that there's been a rift in that locker room with the GM and the coaches guys and all this. And I'm like, nobody ever reported that I ever read. That's a bunch of BS. But everybody knew about it though. Everybody knew about it.
Hasn't Jokic set a record for like most triple doubles in a season or something this year, or something like that? Or am I crazy?
No,
I don't think he set a record, but he's going to average a triple double, which is the third person in history to do that. It's pretty amazing, man.
I tried.
Russell Westbrook.
Yep, that's right.
No, it's been a tough go. It's been a tough
guy
go.
Who's gonna sink the Denver Nuggets this year is the other guy who did it. Russell Westbrook.
Although, didn't you say that you loved it?
No.
Oh, look, he's pretending to be timed out here. He just after freaking out, he flipped the table. He's like, I don't want to fucking talk about the Knicks. The Cavs, what the fuck? There he goes. Oh, sorry. Oh, shit, he's back.
Did I freeze? My former Flames beat my new Flame. Everton beating Forest. It's just been a tough day for me overall.
That's what you were talking about. The
that's about time you fucking lost the game. You know what I mean? Fucking hell.
I don't even know, man. Don't even get into it.
Oh yeah, I was talking shit to people. Did people catch? I mean, they were talking shit to me, so I had to respond.
Okay, I figured that's what it was about.
Yeah, they were in 14th, we're in 3rd, NBD. Guys, it's been a great time. Thank you to everyone who has stuck with us. The boys did a great job on the watch party,
Well done, lads.
and we take the baton here. Please continue to support what we're doing. Thumbs up to the chat. Thumbs up to the chat. Like, sub, comment, all those things and more. Nice glasses, Chuck. Prescriptions?
Yes,
I
thank
can't
you.
tell. Do they have lenses?
Oh, we
Yeah,
got
oh my
new
God.
music.
They knew
Listen to
it,
this music. New fucking music, boys.
It's getting you rolling,
like-
man. You're ready for breakfast now.
This is how
This-
Fright gets down at 2:26 a.m.
Thanks,
Thank
Frank.
you very much
What
for
a banger.
watching. We appreciate you all very much. We will be back. Hey, by the way, special start time on Monday, 12 p.m. Eastern for the Ariel Helwani show. So put your clocks back or just join us at 12, an hour early. We'll have much to discuss with many different people, including the boys in the back. But for now, we shall say goodnight. Congratulations, Alex Volkanovski. Congratulations, Paddy Pimblett. Congratulations, El Pantera. Congrats to all the big winners tonight. Thank you so much for watching. For Chuck, for PT, for the whole crew in New York City. Good night, and we'll see you on Monday.